This company mines asteroids to extract minerals in space at a lower cost and a smaller carbon footprint than the current mining methods. Welcome to AstroForge. And welcome to one more episode of Builder Nation. For today's agenda, we have Matthew Gialich, founder and CEO at the asteroid mining startup you need to know about. So welcome, Matthew. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining Builder Nation today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm an aerospace engineer by trade. I spent a number of years at a company called Virgin Galactic, which became Virgin Orbit, which was building a small launch vehicle that would drop off the wing of a 747. And from there, I founded the company AstroForge. And AstroForge is setting out to take one of the most damaging processes we have on Earth, the process of extracting resources from our crust and moving that off-world. So that's what we set out to do.
Actually, I know that you are launching 2 missions this year, so I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, we launched our mission in April. So that is a refinery that went up into low Earth orbit. And the whole purpose of that mission is to demonstrate that our refining tech can take what we believe to be these M-type asteroids, or these metallic asteroids, these highly iron-rich asteroids that have very, very high percentages of what we call the platinum group metals on them, and show that we could extract the platinum group metals from that sample. So that vehicle is currently in orbit now. We are still going through the process of bringing it online, and pretty soon we'll be running our tests to see if we can refine the asteroid we brought up. That is followed up by a mission in October. And the mission in October, which we are a rideshare on a Falcon 9 rocket that is owned by Intuitive Machines. It's called Intuitive Machines Launch 2. We will be sending out a craft that will go visit the asteroid. So this will be the first fully commercial mission ever to go into deep space and attempt to take high-resolution images of our selected asteroid, confirming that it is one of these M-type asteroids that we can go out and mine. So big mission for the company upcoming, and we can't wait to see the results of it.
Super excited about that. And okay, thank you so much for sharing. I know that this first mission was in a partnership with Orb Astro. So how was that transition for you? You started a company 1 year ago, and then you actually started building partnerships. What was the main challenge there?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say this is a partnership. We purchased a spacecraft from them. And when we look at the space economy and we look at what's available on the market, you have to, as a company, decide what you build in-house, referred to as what you vertically integrate and what you horizontally integrate. We realized that there's quite a number of companies out there building what are called spacecraft buses. And so we had our pick of which company we could team up with to go build this bus that could do mission 1, and the same thing for mission 2. Orb Astro is the company we selected for mission 1. They built the spacecraft, we built the payload, we integrated our payload onto it, and we sent it to space. I think it really speaks to not AstroForge, but what you can do in space at this point in time. I didn't have to build the rocket either. SpaceX did that. I didn't have to build the spacecraft. Orb Astro did that. We can really focus on the kind of IP that is surrounding the company and the refinery itself. It allows us to be laser focused, keep the team much, much smaller, and to be fair, get to space much quicker and cheaper than was ever really allowed before. And so while I can say that we're the fastest YC company ever to go from inception to space, that's really more a compliment to the space economy that exists and the fact that we can get on a rocket really quick right now. We can get a satellite very quick right now. The material is available for us to use.
Interesting. Thanks so much for sharing. And I mean, since you're an engineer by heart, but also the founder and CEO, how involved are you in all of the engineering process?
Our company is really small, right? We're a 17-person company. I'm involved in a lot of the process, but so is my co-founder, Jose. He's the CTO of the company, and I trust him fully to see these missions through from the technical standpoint. We both have a little bit different skill sets, so I can jump in on some places and he can jump in on some cases. But when you have a company this small, you don't get to really choose what you want to do. The job of a CEO at a small company, I always tell people, is to do all the shit that nobody else wants to do. And that's the reality, right? I have to be able to let my engineers work as much as they can on what they're here to work on. And if that means I got to do something that sucks, that's what I'm going to prioritize over really diving into the tech at every step of the way.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure whenever we have the interviews, the hardware companies, all the CEOs and all the founders, they're like, you have to wear all the hats. I wanted to ask you about the actual process. I'm pretty sure that performing extractions in zero gravity must be a thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so the process of mining itself, right? We had to design a refinery that could really do 2 things. Number 1, operate in a vacuum, has to be able to operate in the vacuum of space. But number 2, we need to design a refinery that doesn't require consumables to be used. The standard mining practices for platinum group metals involve a technique called leaching. They involve bringing up massive amounts of chemicals to do this. And that is a totally viable way to mine. It doesn't work in space. I can't ship that mass to orbit and still have it be profitable. So we had to find a way that we could only take as input electricity, and we could mine platinum group metals. And that's what we developed. So our process is really a 3-step process. It includes a vaporization step. So we take this hard piece of iron and we essentially turn it into a gas. We then take that gas and we ionize it. So we positively charge all these little gaseous atoms around, and then we use magnets to separate them. It's a pretty straightforward technique on the surface. Now, obviously, the implementation of this is very difficult and fraught with error, and it's meant to say a lot of cycles to get it right. But that in a nutshell is the technique we are using on this first craft to show that we can refine an asteroid.
And okay, so we talk about the process, we talk about the company. What would you say are the main challenges?
Yeah, main challenges of an asteroid mining company are mining a fucking asteroid. Like, it is still really difficult to do. We've never been commercially to deep space, so we are developing or using a lot of software that governments develop that we have to bring in-house expertise on. It's a very delicate process, and it involves a lot of risk going forward. And that is something we made the decision early on to accept at a company. This is really an all or nothing company where we are going to mine an asteroid or we're not going to mine an asteroid. It's going to be capital intensive. If we can do it, it's a massive company and there's a massive pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if we can pull it off. But it is very technically challenging to pull it off at the price we want to pull it off at. Now, keep in mind, NASA and JAXA have both sent out missions that have essentially done this before. They've gone to asteroids, they've landed on them, they've taken samples. We know technically this is possible. We don't know, and we're out to prove that it is possible at a business case that makes sense. And that means making everything a lot cheaper. And how we do that is very non-trivial and very challenging. And it's a very in-the-weeds process that we're paying attention to every single day to make sure we're getting the best bang for our buck in every system we use.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. So you started a company like 1 year ago or so. That was after the pandemic. Did you struggle with supply chain or procurement in general?
Yeah, we have, like anybody, we're going to have struggles with specifically supply chain coming through, especially on some of the parts we need to get. We've had problems on getting processors and things like this. The good thing about our company is we're very low volume. We're not making 100,000 mining craft. And I think that is really where the supply chain hits. We can pay double the price for a processor and still get it. It just means that the price is a lot more. And in some cases, we've had to make those decisions to do it. But for us, because these are one-offs, it hasn't been a huge detriment to us in the way we've looked at it.
Thank you for sharing. And talking about the next step for the company, what should we be expecting?
Yeah, I mean, the next step that we're super focused on right now is making that mission 2 happen, right? Going out to the asteroid, showing we can leave the Earth, navigate in deep space, get out to the asteroid, do our flyby, take those high resolution images. And then that mission continues on actually for 2 years as we really test the full vehicle in space and make sure the radiation tolerance is correct. The darkening of the lenses is at the right speed. There's a lot of testing that happens even after we visit the asteroid. That's actually very important to us. Putting this all together and making sure it happens is really what the company is laser focused on right now as we look at the future.
Okay. Are you guys planning on expanding anytime soon or going international?
No current plans to go international. Expansion of a company like this, we are very controlled with expansion. We are purposely not trying to grow. We do not want to grow, right? Growing is more overhead, it's more cost, it becomes more expensive, it's a larger building, and that's not what's important to me right now. It's not important to have a nice building. What's important to me is that mission 2 happens, and that's where I want to put all our energy and resource into. And that's really the kind of culture we want to build at the company. And that's how we're thinking about it. From our standpoint, we have a little small expansion plan. We do have some key hires we still need to make, and we're going to push forward and make them. But we're not going to do a ton of hiring. We're not just going to hire or grow into a bigger building. We're going to try to keep it as small as possible.
Thank you for sharing that as well. Okay, and one of the last questions from your perspective, where do you think the future of the space industry is going?
Future of the space industry, wow. Look, I can't predict the future, and I will never try to predict the future. I can say that there's a couple key trends that have happened, right? Cost of launch is lowering dramatically, and that allows people to take a lot higher risk on the payloads they send up or the size of the payloads they send up. And if Starship can happen, and if Starship can actually lower the price of these per kilogram to get to orbit, you open up like the next level of what we can send to space. And I think it's really about creating the ability to move forward in these markets, have it be cheaper to access, have it be less capital intensive to get to space. That is really going to open the door to what we can do. I'm excited what the future is going to hold. There's a ton of cool companies out there trying to do cool things. We all have a long road ahead of us. We all have a lot to prove technically and from a business case standpoint. And I think there's some really big players out there that can make a big splash if they can pull it off.
Thank you so much for that answer. Matt, do you have any advice for future entrepreneurs or people starting on this path?
Future entrepreneurs, I think the only advice I can give you if you're thinking about building a company is to just do it. So many people get caught up at the early stages, and the hardest part about starting a company is actually starting a company. Just go do it. Just go try. And if you're willing to outwork anybody else, there's a good chance you're going to make it happen. And that's it. And if anybody ever has any questions or wants to reach out directly, please email me, matt@astroforge.io. I always love to talk to new founders and help them through and give any advice I can. Take it or leave it. I'm a guy who started an asteroid mining company, right? This is not a B2B SaaS company that has clear margins on it, but I'm always willing to give input and advice to anybody out there to help them along on their own personal journey.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your experiences with us, for that great piece of advice. Do you have any social media handles? Where can people find you or the company?
We're on Twitter at AstroForge. You can find us on LinkedIn, or you can email us directly, matt@astroforge.io.
Thank you, Matt, for your time. And we were really lucky to have you today.
Awesome. Thank you. You have a great day.